Hi everyone, I'm Trish Triumpho Sullivan, and I'm here today to talk about ART1A art history, lecture number 4, and we're going to talk about the vocabulary of art history or art words, right? So let's dive right in. So, we'll get this board erased so I can write some stuff down as we're talking here. Okay, so first off, really to understand and talk about art, okay, you'll need to have the tools, and in this case, vocabulary or words to describe art. So words, it's not mysterious, you guys, okay? Once we know what the words mean, right, we can talk about art. And there's other words we can use besides this, but these are the words that art historians use and art critics use and any artist that you talk to are going to use. So these are the words that will be, people use to describe art in any publication or museum or whatever. So art historians basically study the visual and the tangible objects that humans make and structures humans build. That's pretty much it. They use particular terms to describe them, like a specialized vocabulary. Okay, pretty much like any specialized profession has a vocabulary like that. They speak in specific terms, and this consists of hundreds, if not thousands, of words, right? But today I'm going to be sharing the most important words with you, right? The ones you really need to know for us to talk when we're having our class discussions, okay? And so these what we would be like the formal analysis of artistic form, okay? So that's a kind of the essential vocabulary for art historians. So let's start right off with form and composition. So form and composition. Yeah, I'm not looking too good there, am I? There we go. Make it look a little more legible, okay? So what that means is, so form is, it's literally the, it's literally the object's shape and structure. So that's all it means. So we're talking about shape and structure. Right? We say, what form does it take? Right? So what shape and what structure is it? Is something that you'll often hear people say. So, what form? What's the form? Okay? So it's literally the shape and structure of 2 or 3-dimensional works of art, right? So that means either flat, like this is a 2-dimensional work, piece, or 3-dimensional, like if had a sculpture of my hand that you could see all 3 sides, right? So what form does it take? And composition is how an artist organizes, right, or composes an artwork by placing shapes and color on a flat surface, or maybe in the round, right? Maybe on a sculpture of some sort. So composition is how things are arranged. The arrangement. Of the subject or subjects, okay? So that's the arrangement of those two. So these are the first 2 words, form and composition. You really want to know what that means. Form, it's the shape or structure of the artwork, okay? Composition is the arrangement of the subjects. Just like you compose a sentence, you put the words in a particular order. You might put the sentences in a particular order in a paragraph. You're composing with words, right? In this case, composition is the arrangement of subjects. In other words, if you had 2 people that you were going to do a painting of, you can arrange them in a certain way. That's your composition, okay? So that makes sense, right? I hope so. So the next two words that I want us to know, or that you need to know for this class, are going to be material and technique. So let's write those down. Okay, so material, so material and technique. So the creation of artworks basically requires the use of a medium, right? We call that so a medium is the material that you're using. That's all it means, okay? It's in the art world, we call it a medium, and the plural is media. So if you're using more than one medium, it is media. Right? Let's say I'm using both a watercolor and a pen when I'm doing a painting. Okay, I'd be using plural. I'd be using two mediums, so that becomes the media. So you'll hear people saying the media, okay? What are media? Well, you could be pigment, like paint, right? Clay, stone, precious metals, and much, much more. There's so many things you can make art out of, right? Wood, canvas, you name it. That's your medium or your media, okay? And tools such as brushes, pens, chisels, all materials or media, right? And tools have limitations, right? We can only use things for so many different ways, right? Basically limitations of what they can and cannot do, you know, what an artist can actually accomplish with them, okay? For the process of creation, an artist selects a medium, right? And whatever tools or media, right? And whatever tools are best suited for that particular artist's creation, right? Or if they don't have the tools, they can invent tools, right? They invent new tools and new processes to use them. So in antiquity, Romans invented things like concrete. Did you know that concrete went back to the Romans? Pretty impressive, huh? And before that, the bronze was discovered, right? Which heralded in the Bronze Age. Kind of exciting stuff. So the processes used by artists and their unique personal style are what are called technique. So technique is basically the process and style of an artist. Right? What process does that artist use, and what style is that? Right? Does that make sense? I hope so. So form and composition, material and technique are fundamentally connected and pretty vital to analyzing works of art, right? We have to know what the form of it is, like what's the size and shape, what is the composition, like how is it arranged, what material was used, and what technique did the artist use to do it, to create it, right? So all those first four words are really, really important for the most, they're vital. They're vital to analyzing any work of art. So they're important to know. They're the four most important words to know. Material, technique, composition, and form, okay? So let's move on, and we're going to go to our next word, which is another fun word. And the next word is going to be line. So line is very important to art. What's a line? Well, one important element of art is line, right? It's defined as a mark from one point to another point, right? So I just made a mark. I made a line. Okay. Now, it can be, I don't know, most I would say most lines you see on flat surfaces in art, right? Like they're not, it's made for using on two-dimensional works of art. It can be drawn or chiseled, can be painted, it can be thick or thin, it can be continuous like this, or dotted, right? So with this, I can make a thin line. I can start off thin, and then I can make it thicker, and I can make it thin again, and I can make it thicker, and I can make it thin, right? So you can make you have a lot of different ways that you can make lines. Solid or broken, and also there's what we call implied lines, and I think that's an important thing to do. When you say implied line is usually a change in color, right? So if I'm doing something with my I'm making a sphere with an earth, right? I may not, if I was drawing an earth with a background of stars, like say in outer space, or painting that, I wouldn't have, if I were painting it, I wouldn't necessarily have a line like outlining the earth. It would just be a change in color from the blue and white of the blue of the atmosphere and the white of the clouds. There would be the contrast of that to the background of dark sky, right? Which would be black if it was in outer space. It would look very, very black. And that would be what we call an implied line. You don't really see a line drawn, but you see a difference in color, okay? So that's a way to say that, or explain it a little better, I hope. Continuous lines are called contour lines. A contour line is something, let's see if I can just give you a quick heads up on this. This is a contour line is where when you're drawing or painting, you're not lifting your brush or pencil or pen off of the paper. And it's usually kind of thought of as an outline, right? So if I was drawing something, let's say a water bottle, I might never lift my pen from the paper, but I might draw, this is looking more like a milk bottle, right? So that would be like the contour of a water bottle, right? Or some kind of a bottle, right? So it's pretty basic. It's kind of the outline of it, I guess you would say. So that's kind of important. It's kind of a long continuous line. So the next important word that you need to know for art history is color. Color is pretty darn important, so let's write that down. Color is important because it's one of the most important aspects of art, okay? Color comes from the reflection of light on a surface, right? So light's reflected back from a surface is where color comes from. Natural light or sunlight is called additive light. Whoops. Okay, it consists of all the colors in the spectrum, okay? When you think of all the colors in a spectrum, it's like the rainbow of colors, right? It may be fragmented into individual colors, okay? And it's from the visible spectrum or the spectral band, okay? So the visual spectrum is because just so you know, light, natural light is electromagnetic energy, right? And there's a lot of that all over the universe. It's, high frequency, low frequency, and the only part of that electromagnetic energy that we can see, the visual spectrum, is a little teensy weensy bit, right, on that whole large amount of electromagnetic energy that's, you know, pulsing through the universe at all times and going through our bodies and through walls and all those other kind of things. So often they're called waves, like light waves, right? But we also have TV waves and radio waves and gamma and microwaves, and right. So X-ray waves, all kinds of different waves are in our universe going around all the time, and the only part we can see is the natural light. That's a very small amount of the visual spectrum or visible spectrum or spectral band. Painter's light, right, when you're using paint, is called subtractive. And that's kind of important. It's an important piece of the vocabulary to know. Subtractive light basically is because paint pigments derive their color from reflecting a particular bandwidth of natural light. So this is a little bit of science, but it's kind of important to know. Remember, you know, arts and science actually goes together because it all forms each other of meaning, actually. So just so you know, because this is really important, paint pigments are reflecting a particular bandwidth, and that's because matter, color is not a property of matter. I think that's an important way to put it. Color is not a property of matter. What is a property of matter? It's gray, right? It's there. But everything that we see would be gray if we didn't have light on it, because light is what is reflecting a certain bandwidth of color from natural light, right? From natural sunlight. It reflects a certain bandwidth of color. So red pigment, right, subtracts all other colors in the spectrum except red, which it reflects back. Okay, so that's a very important, that's why it's called subtractive light, right? If you're using a pigment for paint and it's blue, it is subtracting all the other colors except blue. Okay, so that's why it's called subtractive light. So that's an important concept to get. Right? In art, color is known as a hue. Right? So we often call color hues, right? Different hues of color. And the amount of light reflected as well as the perceived brightness, okay, is called the intensity. Right? How bright is it? How much color? How much, you know, they often say saturation is also, is it saturated with colors? Like, is it soaked with color, right? These can be used interchangeably a lot of times, right? The intensity or the saturation of color, like how bright is it? How rich is it? Lightness and darkness is referred to as value or tonality. It looks like I'm running out of room here. Hang on a sec. Okay, so the three basic colors. You guys know what the three basic colors are? We'll erase this off really quick so we can write those down. I'm listening. Three basic colors are red, yellow, and blue. Right? Those colors are called primary colors, okay? And you probably have heard that term, The primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. Right? So those are primary colors. When colors are mixed from those three primary colors, that would, when you mix two of those primary colors together, you get what is called secondary colors. Right? So secondary colors are like when you mix red and yellow together, what do you get? Orange, right? When you mix yellow and blue together, what do you get? Green. Okay. When you mix red and blue together, you get violet. Okay. If I mix those guys together, I'm going to get violet. So those are called secondary colors because you're mixing two of the first, right? Primary means first. So you're mixing two of the first colors and you get the second color out of a mixture of the first colors, right? Well, if you mix secondary colors together, like let's say I mixed, orange and violet, or if I mixed green and blue together, right? That would be called a tertiary color. Okay. Whoops. Okay, so a tertiary color means third, right? It's the third mixture of colors. You've got the first colors, the three primary colors. They mix together to make secondary colors, and then if you mix the secondary colors, say with another of the secondary or primary colors, you get what we call tertiary colors. Okay, so that's a third layer. Those are colors such as turquoise or blue-green or red-orange, right? Complementary colors. Complementary colors are colors that are opposite on the color wheel. So that means if you have a color wheel and you've got the primary colors of like red, blue, and yellow, right? And then you have your secondary colors of what's red and blue make? Violet, right? What's blue and yellow make? Green. And what does red and yellow make? Orange, right? So we'll have those colors on there so that when you're looking opposite, the opposite of yellow would be violet, right? So that would be a complementary color. Red would be green, right? So that would be those would be complementary colors. They're complementing each other. They're just, all it means is they're opposite on the color wheel, okay? So hopefully that explains that for you pretty clearly. We'll look at some examples at some point. So next word that we want to know about is texture. Texture, yep, it is the quality of a surface, okay? Is it smooth and shiny like this board, or is it like rough, right? Like this towel that I'm using to wipe the board with, right? That's what texture means. Like, what is it? Is it rough or is it silky? It can be tactile, right, or implied. And when I say tactile, it means it could be that you actually touch it to feel the texture, or it could be implied texture. And just like an implied line, it usually means that an artist has used something to kind of fool the eye to make it look silky or rough with painting techniques, right? Or sculpting techniques that imply a particular texture. Combining different materials, right, in like say a collage or mixed media. So I'm going to write mixed media down because that's something you should know. Mixed media means that they've used more than one medium, right? And so that means that they've mixed them up. So collage or mixed media, basically, when they're combining different materials, they can sometimes even have both tactile and implied texture in them. And sometimes an artist's choice of material is strictly due to what its intrinsic texture is, right? What it is, or how it feels, right? A lot of times sculpture it can be really smooth because the artist, it invites you to touch it, even though in museums and galleries they tell you don't touch, right? You put your hands behind your back so you don't accidentally touch something. A lot of art makes you want to touch it, right? It has that texture, that tactile quality that makes you just want to feel it and see what it is, see how it feels under your hand. So that is what texture is about, right? How it feels. So whether it's how it looks like it feels or how it actually feels, right? Is it real? Is it implied, or is it tactile, right? So let's talk about space and volume really quick. But I think I'm going to need to make this the part 2 of the lecture because I think it might be too long. So we'll put space and volume, and I'll end this one, and we'll pick up right where we left off.